I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati.
All right, guys. Welcome. Happy Friday, and welcome to Sabby Sabs podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. If you are new, I want to let you know that Sabby Sabs podcast is a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can catch me there on Thursdays and Fridays, and you can catch me here on Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Sunday. Shout out to everyone watching on YouTube, Rockfin, and Twitter. And happy Friday, guys. Guys, you'll have to bear with me tonight. I woke up this morning with a sore throat, so it sucks. I wanted to go out tonight after the show to get a drink for Cinco de Mayo, but looks like the only drink I'll be having is tea with honey after this is done. That seems to be where I'm headed. So, anywho, happy Friday. Welcome, guys. I want to give a quick shout out to everyone who is a Sabby patron. Then I'll greet everyone in the chat, and then we'll go ahead and dive into news. Interesting stories tonight. Shout out to everyone who is a Sabby patron. If you're interested in being a patron, I have 5 categories: Ultimate, Sabinators, Sabsters. Don't forget about those Sabbies. Lots of Sabbies. A whole organization there. And of course, members as well. All of their names are listed here. You can also see their names scrolling across the bottom of the screen there on the ticker. And I want to give a huge shout out to a new Sabby patron. Over here, we call them newbies. Let's give it up for Mary Williams. Whoop, whoop. Whoop, whoop to Mary. Whoopity, whoop, whoop. All right. Let's see who's hanging out with me tonight. Go ahead and greet a couple of peeps. Shout out to Lovelo, says, happy Friday. I'm glad you're back again so we can hear what you have to say about the recent developments. Welcome. Shout out to Hannah G, says, Ro Con Man. Oh, yeah, he's at it again. We'll get into that. Greetings, Bryce, says, happy Friday, everyone. Sabby time. What's going on, Lawrence, who's a Sabby member, says, doobie-doobie-doo, Cinco de Mayo. Shout out to Want to See More. Happy Cinco de Mayo. That's right, guys. It's also my sister's birthday. So my sister was born on Cinco de Mayo. Shout out to Larez, says, happy Friday, Sabrina, Eric, and Sabby fam. Watching NBA playoffs, and this is to get a dose of sanity. Help Sab by watching the ads and hitting the like. Go ahead and hit that like button, guys. That helps me with the algo. Shout out to the Quantum Alchemist. Well, having mixed feelings here personally. France must be having serious issues right now. So bad that it seriously affects shipments. Since Tuesday, I'm waiting for a shipment from France just to be sent. Yep, it's not even on its way yet. And apparently a lot of people having said issue. Haha. Guess it would be wise to avoid ordering from France for a while. Yeah, the protests. That's probably why. They're probably on strike still. Shout out to Robert, says, may the 4th be with you. We are now on day 5. It's now May 5th. Shout out to Gamer, says, hello. Greetings, Desert Mantis, says, at Robert Templeton. Hello, Robert. Shout out to, let me just go down. Shout out to G, says RFK Jr. 2024. Greetings, James sends love and fire. James is also a Sabby member. Shout out to Notori. I think those are laughing tears. Are those tears? I forget. I'm not the best with emojis. I'm not the best. Shout out to Randy, says, hi there, gamer, and good evening to the rest of my Sabby comrades. What's going on? Midnight Karma says, hi, gamer. What an adorable baby. So adorable. Oh. Shout out to Dr. Nick, says, hi, everybody. Greetings, Sebastian, says, hey, y'all. Shout out to Cassie, says, hi, with a smile. What's going on, Mastermind, says Gamer Mantis QA. Shout out to ACAB, says, hey, everyone. Greetings, .R. I like the music. Thank you. Courtesy of Jesse Jett. He made that song. Shout out to James M, says, vitamin C. Zinc. Yeah, I could do both of those, actually. I actually have zinc. I have zinc in the fridge. I can check that out. Don't ask. Anyway, shout out to Red Six, says, hello, Sabby, and everyone in the chat. What's going on? Nikki's World says, hello, comrades. And greetings, Sean Miller says, oof, almost missed this because of a 90s music mix. Damn, I'm old. LOL. I have a 90s playlist on my Spotify. I love 90s music, so I'm there with you. And shout out to Eric Gray, says, sup, y'all, happy Friday. Okie doke. Let me see if I can in here really quick. Yep, got it, Eric. Thank you. Okie doke, honey buns. There's something on the side of it. FYI, there's a volume mix on the right-hand side, Eric. I don't know if that's supposed to be there or not, but just FYI. Could just be me. Yeah, it says hardware input voice meter. That's like on the side, so people will see that when I show the screen, unless I don't know what I did. Anyway. Anywho, let's see what we are going to discuss tonight. Oh, okay, thanks, Eric. Here's what we're talking about tonight. Let's go ahead and show that thumbnail and get right into it. Some interesting stories coming up, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight, we are discussing AOC and Matt Gaetz' bill. What is that all about? And why is Rokana in the middle there looking a little suspicious? We're going to get into that story. We're also going to discuss Marianne Williamson on Sean Hannity. How did that go for Marianne? Was Hannity being fair? Is Hannity ever being fair? I'm going to tell you what I think about both of them in that discussion, and some of the things that I think people should reframe going forward. We're also going to discuss NYC subway anger. If you have not heard about that story yet, we're going to get into that tonight as well, about Jordan Neely, who was the Michael Jackson impersonator. We're going to get into that story. It's crazy. And we're also going to discuss writers on strike. That's right. Hollywood writers on strike. And I want to hear how you feel about that. I have some mixed opinions, but we'll get there. We will get there. Let's get started with this writers' strike story. Now, Hollywood writers are on strike. They were hinting towards this a couple of days ago. I didn't think they were actually going to go through with it, but they had decided to do so. And I want to just go ahead and maybe, dispel a notion that people may have. Not everyone that works in Hollywood actually makes a lot of money. It was like a year or two ago where the production crew in Hollywood also threatened to go on strike. Now, these are the people that work behind the scenes. You see their names in the credits at the very end, usually, and most people don't stay that long to see those names. But these were the people who were working with props. These were the people, the costume designers, the people who actually put together the sets. You don't see these people, but without them, these movies and TV shows just do not happen. That's just the reality of the situation. And now we have a strike here with the writers in Hollywood. And I want to be clear about this. No script, no show, no movie. So you need someone to write for these shows and for these movies. Now, one of the things I'm going to point out before we get into the first clip, people were mentioning how Hollywood celebrities have joined them with this strike basically in a sort of like solidarity. I like when people join strikes in reference to solidarity. I love that. But I've noticed something. Where was the solidarity when the railroad workers were trying to go on strike? You know, it's like people only seem to have solidarity sometimes when it's an issue that affects them directly. And this is something that affects the actors directly because they know, hey, I'm not going to get these roles if I don't have lines, there's no script, right? So it would have been really nice if all of those people would have came out in support of the railroad workers as well. But people look out for themselves, something I've been talking about before. So let's get into this clip here from CNN. Film and TV writers are striking, and here's how it affects you. This is interesting. Listen to this.
As of this morning, more than 11,000 TV and movie writers, they're on strike, halting multiple productions and possibly delaying new seasons of some of your favorite shows. What that means is this, that late night TV shows, they will see the first impact. They depend, understandably, on writers for fresh material all the time and in real time, so you could soon be looking at reruns. You may also soon see more reality TV popping up. During the last big strike in 2007, shows like Big Brother and Survivor, they boomed, filling the void when scripted shows were halted. The big difference this time around.
I have to pause there and just say something for just a second. Most of those reality shows are also scripted in some way, shape, or form. So let's just be clear here. The Housewives, I know some of you like to watch the Housewives shows, the Big Brothers, the Survivors. Most of those reality shows still have somewhat of a script. So just FYI. But notice who they're pulling in this time. Hulu, Netflix, Amazon Prime, and Disney Plus. This could affect you for those of you who don't watch cable, but you do have the streaming services.
Is the vast content universe coming from the streaming services, from Hulu to Amazon Prime, Netflix, Disney Plus. They have tons of shows and movies readily available and can offer new content for quite some time. As for that last big strike in 2007, it left a mark. It cost roughly $2.1 billion after that.
I don't know what's going on, Eric, but it's very fuzzy. It could just be, it's clear on Type VNC, but in StreamYard, it looks really fuzzy. I don't know what it looks like on YouTube. But let's go back here for just a second. One sec. Okay.
Time around is the vast content universe.
Uh-oh, what just happened? I don't know what just happened here. That was weird. Okay, let's try this again.
Coming from the streaming services, from Hulu to Amazon Prime, Netflix, Disney Plus. They have tons of shows and movies readily available and can offer new content for quite some time. As for that last big strike in 2007, it left a mark. It cost roughly $2.1 billion after that strike lasted 100 days. Now, right now, media and tech companies, they're grappling with three big issues, it seems. Weak advertising market that has driven stock prices down and driven them to cut costs and cut their labor force. The writers also face a very tough reality right now as well. They say a lack of jobs combined with low pay makes the current situation just unsustainable. Last month, 98% of the members of the Writers Guild voted in favor of this strike. Sarah?
So again, before we go into this a little bit further, I just want to remind you, not everyone in Hollywood is actually making a lot of money. So a lot of the people that may be a part of the entertainment industry, but they're not the actors, so to speak, they're not making like $1 million. They're not making like $90,000, $100,000 a year. And most of the actors in Hollywood are working actors. And these are people that already have another job, whether they're waiting tables or something like that. And they also act at the same time. Most of the actors in Hollywood are not the mega movie stars that we're used to seeing. They're the people whose names you probably never even hear of, right? So 98% of the writers are in favor of going on strike. We're going to get to their demands in a second, but you already heard her say that one of the things they're fighting for, obviously, is the income, the pay. It's too low. So it's a problem. They need to be paid more. And you're going to see just how little they're paid when you compare it to the CEOs of some of these networks that they work for. So keep that in mind.
All right. Thank you, Kate. Joining me now is television writer, showrunner, and host of Adam Ruins Everything, Adam Conover. Since you're known for ruining everything, is this your fault?
I mean, I'm off the clock right now. We're on strike, so I'm not ruining anything for the time being, except maybe the profits of the companies.
All right. Explain why you feel that it is so important that this strike goes forward, that this has to happen now.
So the studios and the streamers have tried to turn television writing from a career into a gig job. Writer pay has fallen by 23% over the past 10 years. Even though the company profits have gone up by 50%, they're spending more money than ever on making these shows. They're making more profit from them than ever. But writers...
Let's pause here for just a second. Gig jobs. This is becoming more and more popular. I told you there's something similar to this in higher ed. They're called adjunct faculty, where they're not full-time faculty. They work for the university. They teach courses, but they don't receive full-time benefits. A lot of them don't receive health insurance, to be honest with you. Gig work is becoming more common, and this is something I've been trying to warn people about. It is cheaper for the company. It's cheaper for them just to hire you to do a job and not have to give you any benefits. And that is where this is headed. So listen to what he's saying. Now, listen, I have no pity for the actors and actresses here who are out here making millions and millions of dollars. I have no pity for Tom Cruise, okay? But the writers, they are basically being exploited as a part of a system that you and I know all too well, and that system is capitalism. You see, more and more often, these CEOs are finding ways to get the job done for less pay and less labor. And one of the ways that they can do that is by giving people gig work. So they don't have to give them health insurance. They don't have to give them dental insurance. They don't have to give them a paid vacation. If they want to take vacation, guess what? They're just not going to get paid for that time. Increasing contract employees, increasing temp jobs. And this is something that I saw increase over the past 5 years. And that's what I've been trying to warn people about, this gig economy that is coming our way. This is becoming more common and people need to wake up to this. And this is another reason to push to give everybody health care in this company and not have health insurance attached to your job. Look how quickly they can just change their mind and say, we want to just hire you guys for gig work. That's all. We don't really want to give you any benefits. Any CEO could do that. So you may not be a writer in Hollywood, but that doesn't mean this couldn't happen at your employer as well.
Are making less money. They're employing us for less time. And if you look at the proposals that they rejected that caused us to go on strike, they're proposals that would have protected writers, that would have made sure that when we're not just employed by the day, but by the week and by the month, that we can build a stable life in Los Angeles or New York where we live. That will prevent us from living in precarity. Writers are really facing struggle right now, and we are fighting for a stable life like all workers.
We are showing some of the sticking points. Can you give us what some of those sticking points are? I think 98% of the members of the Writers Guild were in favor of the strike, and that's obviously the vast majority. What are some of the things that you guys are not going to compromise on?
Here we go.
So the studios are trying to eliminate the writer's room. You're probably familiar with the term, the writer's room. This is a room that's existed for decades where writers get together and break a story and write scripts. The companies are trying to eliminate it. They're trying to make the room smaller. They're trying to employ us on a freelance basis. They'd rather we just stay home and email scripts in, and they pay.
Let's talk about the writer's room for a second, and I want to explain to you why this is important. So some of you, like if you grew up during the time when I grew up, like in the 90s, sitcoms were hugely popular. I don't feel like they are as much anymore now because there's so many different streaming services and reality TV kind of changed the game. But when I was growing up, if you saw these behind the scenes takes that they would show every now and then on TV, I was watching like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I remember watching Martin, Seinfeld, all those like fun like 90s shows, TGIF, right? Thank God It's Friday. Family Matters, those shows that came on during that time. Every now and then they would do a behind the scenes look, and what you would see are all the writers sitting down in one room and writing the script together. Why is that important? Because when you're writing for a show, it's not just one person that is writing for that entire sitcom. Same thing with the show like SNL, Saturday Night Live. The writer's room is huge. They all come together and they write these scripts together, right? Why is that important? Because you get to bounce ideas off of each other and you are writing as a group. It's not a one-man show. So what they wanted to do was to get away with that. And they basically wanted them to work from home. Now, I wouldn't have had a problem with that one, just being honest. Would not have had a problem. They wanted them to work from home and email scripts in. The problem is, it's kind of hard to go back and forth if you're just emailing things in. It's going to make it more difficult. They could probably do this over a Zoom call maybe and things like that too, but typically this is how they would do it. They would get together in one room and pick each other's brains and just go for it, right? So for the writers who write for those shows, the writing room is actually important.
Us a fee every once in a while, and we can't make a living that way. And so our proposals are to ensure that there's a writer's room on every single show, and they have refused to even discuss that proposal with us. Another sticking point is that we want to make sure that writers are paid the same in streaming as they are on television.
That's a big difference. Eric, can you refresh this? It's just really bad. It's really glitchy. That's a big difference. So for people who are not aware, for those of you that watch like regular network television, let's say you're watching a show on cable or maybe ABC or NBC, those writers are paid more than writers that write for shows that are on Netflix or Hulu only or Amazon Prime. They don't make the same. The streaming services, even though the shows may be great, I can list several shows that are Netflix only shows that I think are phenomenal and are way better than network television, like Stranger Things, for example. I think that is one of the best shows. I think it's way better than what you'll see on Netflix television or network television. That being said, even though that is the case, even though some of those shows may be better, because it is on a streaming platform, it doesn't really have the same cred as the shows that are on network television. And it's unfortunate, but in Hollywood, that's just kind of how they look at it. They don't feel that the shows on Netflix and the movies on Netflix or Hulu basically are to the same caliber as the production quality that you get from a show on network television. So it just is what it is. But no, they are not paid the same. Let's go back in.
Are on television. My first show was for True TV. My second show was for Netflix. The show had the exact same format, but on Netflix, we had no minimums, we had no protections, we were paid less. The residuals are literally 1% of what they were under broadcast. And that's true for everybody in late night. That's true for screenwriters. It's true across all of our work areas.
What do you say to those that run this industry that say, look, times are changing. We are not making as much money as we once did. This is not the golden era of television, although some of us would argue the shows are great. What do you say to them?
So I'd point out the fact that David Zaslav, the CEO of Warner Brothers Discovery, which is, the parent company of the network I'm talking to you on right now, was paid $250 million last year, $250 million. That's about the same level as what 10,000 writers are asking him to pay all of us collectively. All right. So.
Boom. So he calls out CNN there, in a little snarky way, because he's pointing out the fact that this is the same person. Listen to this one more time. Listen to how much money this person is making.
That's true for screenwriters. It's true across all of our work areas.
What do you say to those that run this industry that say, look, times are changing. We are not making as much money as we once did. This is not the golden era of television, although some of us would argue the shows are great. What do you say to them?
So I'd point out the fact that David Zaslav, the CEO of Warner Brothers Discovery, which is, the parent company of the network I'm talking to you on right now, was paid $250 million last year, a quarter of
$250 million in 1 year. That was given to one person. That is what all the writers are asking for collectively. So you see the exploitation? So yes, they work in Hollywood, but just like a lot of these other employers, the person at the top is making way more than all the little people at the bottom. And then you have actors making like $100,000 an episode or $20 million for a movie. These shows and movies don't exist without the writers or the production crew. That's just a reality. But here we are, exploitation. The CEO is making over $250 million. Does one person need to make $250 million? And the writers are making just enough to get by. Don't forget, prices are higher now. The grocery store prices are high. And you're living in LA or LA County, somewhere close by where they can get to work. It's expensive. It's expensive. So that's part of the problem. The CEO is taking a lot of money.
$1 billion. That's about the same level as what 10,000 writers are asking him to pay all of us collectively, all right? So I would say if you're being paid $250 million, Ted Sarandos made about $50 million last year. These companies are making enormous amounts of money. Their profits are going up. It's ridiculous for them to plead poverty when the writers who are making their shows, some of them are not able to pay their rent or their mortgages. I literally know writers who have had to go on assistance because they have not been able to make their year. If you look at these companies, they're making more money than ever. It's the people who make the shows for them that are making less.
Adam Conover, thank you so much for coming on because you ruined everything. You may have just ruined my career, but I don't mind. Appreciate you coming on and being very honest and candid with me.
So he was willing to call out the individual who owns the network and saying that he's part of the problem. And he said it on that network, right? Now, here's my issue with the writer's strike. People need to be paid a living wage, regardless of what industry that you are in. But what's kind of disheartening is to see all of these celebrities and media personalities speaking up for the writers in Hollywood, especially those who are affected by this. But they were silent when the railroad workers were trying to go on strike. They had nothing to say. There was no solidarity there for whatever reason. And it's things like that to me that are just really upsetting, because I was thinking to myself, imagine if people like Brad Pitt or Tom Cruise, if they all came together and stood up for the railroad workers, that would have received way more attention. And then maybe the railroad workers would have been able to get more. But they were silent. And we talked about this last night. These unions, they need to work together. Regardless of the industry, all of these unions need to get together the same way unions get together in the UK and in France and do one huge strike. But I feel like in this country, everybody's out for themselves. That's a big part of the problem. Now, Case Study QB, shout out to him because he had a clip here as well I want you to see. Joe Piscopo talks about WGA West and WGA East strike. Listen to what Joe Piscopo says. Again, this is someone who would be directly affected. So listen to this.
When VHS first came out, and I'm a proud member of the WGA, when the VHS first came out, they said, oh, it'll go nowhere. Don't worry about it. When the internet broke, I remember this distinctly. They go, the internet's a little thing. It's not going to turn into anything. And to this day, I get residuals from the Writers Guild, and it's not from the Writers Guild, it's from the producers for like $1, for like 69 cents because of the deals we made in the past. And then, now they're talking about streaming. It's got to stop. And this strike is, you know why it's so important, Todd, my friend? It's because it's the working class people of America versus the big corporate giant. That's what's happened. These movie companies are making a fortune, and they've got to just spread. And I don't want to sound like a a, like a socialist or anything, but they got to spread the wealth a little bit because.
That part right there. That part right there. He doesn't want to sound like a socialist. Did you guys hear what he just said? I don't want to sound like a socialist, but you have to spread the wealth a little bit. Why not? Why not sound like a socialist? What's wrong with that? Don't say the forbidden word, right, Eric? Socialist, no. Why not? Because he know that that word scares people. So what, Joe? Sound like a socialist. Why are you worried about what they're thinking? But this is what he said. He doesn't want to sound like a socialist.
We've gone through this year after year after year in the Writers Guild of them taking advantage of us. And I see by my little puny residual checks, and it's time to stop and it's time to stand strong.
Yeah, it's not socialism when the people that are asking for the money are actually the ones that do all the work. And basically what they're asking for is like future streams on money that from platforms that really have yet to.
They are completely clueless. Listen to what he said when he talks about socialism. He said it's not socialism when. Listen to this part.
Socialism when the people that are asking for the money are actually the ones that do all the work. And
when the people who are asking for the money are the ones who do all the work. I don't think people really understand socialism. Thank you, Marco. Says OMG, WTF, LOL. I don't think people really have a grasp on what socialism is. Socialism doesn't mean that you are not working. I don't know why people assume that. That's not what that means. Socialism is about the workers, but the workers owning the means of the production. What he said there didn't make any sense. And there's no one there to push back on it.
Basically what they're asking for is like future streams on money that from platforms that really have yet to even be created or that are so in the infancy, like you said. The studios just say, don't worry about it. Well, the writers are worried about it because they don't want to lose out.
Very fitting since today is Karl Marx's birthday. Very fitting. They get it wrong. They get it wrong. What are they going to do? Papa Z Jose says, most people do not understand capitalism as well as socialism. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. So, it's interesting. I think it's making some waves. I really do. And we'll see what happens. We'll see how it goes from here. But I want to tell you about the demands because you can't go on strike without having any type of demands, right? Here's what they're asking for. I don't think this is too bad. What do striking Hollywood writers want? A look at the demands. So let's do that. The 11,500 members of the Writers Guild of America went on strike Tuesday after negotiations with Hollywood studios that began in March failed to result in an agreement. The Guild has billed the issues behind the labor dispute as an existential crisis. Writers say they're facing a host of new issues brought on by streaming and other recent technological shifts in the industry. Here's a look at the demands behind the first Hollywood strike in 15 years as the industry braces for a long hiatus. Increased pay. The Guild is seeking higher compensation for writers across the board. Though there are more jobs available to WGA members than ever before, because of the proliferation of streaming services, pay for most writers is down. 10 years ago, 33% of TV writers were paid the minimum rate. Now, according to the WGA, 49% are. Accounting for inflation, writer pay has declined 14% in the last 5 years. The median weekly writer-producer pay is down 23% over the last decade, with inflation factored in. Writers say many of the members aren't even making a living wage. So they are also seeking increases for their pension plan and health fund. Again, if we had health care for everyone in this country, this would not be an issue, the health fund. You wouldn't have to worry about receiving health care from your employer. And there are people on strike there. What else are they asking for? Better residuals. For more than half of a century, residuals have been a foundational way for writers to make money, but streaming has upended those payouts. Writers used to be handsomely compensated anytime their work went into syndication or was sold for overseas territories. Reruns meant a big payday. So if you look at one of those channels like Nick at Night, where they show like the older shows, you ever wonder whatever happened to a lot of those actors, right? Like what happened to the people who were acting in shows like in the 80s or early 90s and they just kind of disappeared? Well, it used to be that technically they didn't have to continue acting if they didn't want to, especially if they were on a show that was on for like 5 years, 10 years, 20 years or whatever. They didn't have to worry about that because of the reruns, because of the syndication, they still receive payment every time those shows aired. But because streaming services have now entered the field, that has changed. So things are changing. Technology is changing a lot of things, even in the entertainment industry. But now series and films often simply land a streaming service and stay there. Streaming services also generally don't share viewership data with filmmakers and writers, meaning writers don't know how valuable their work has been. To replace back-end residuals, the WGA is seeking more upfront fees. So that's important. I mean, it's true. You can go on Netflix right now. I think Friends is on there. So it doesn't matter if a network like TBS is still playing reruns of Friends. You can probably get the whole thing. Last I checked, it was on Netflix. You can get that on Netflix, or you can get it on Hulu, right? Even some of the older shows. So things are changing. Staffing requirements. This is another demand. The union wants TV shows to staff a certain number of writers for a period of time. At issue is the rising practice of mini rooms, where only a handful of writers are working on a series. Such writer rooms are often employed during development before a show is greenlit. That means writers can be working on a series that doesn't get picked up for as much as a year after they've worked on it, or not at all. The process has circumvented some of the protections WGA members have from being overworked and understaffed. So this is another thing. The use of mini rooms accelerated during the pandemic, with writers often meeting by Zoom, a still commonplace practice. So this is another one, the staffing requirements. So far, with the exception of the residuals, these demands don't sound unfamiliar. Like we've heard these demands before from other employees from other industries. So it doesn't sound unusual. Shorter exclusivity deals. Many of the rules around TV writing are also still based on a now increasingly outdated model. Writers might have once expected to spend almost a year working on a 22 to 25 episode season of broadcast TV. Now, the average season is much shorter. Popular shows like Bridgerton might have only 8 episodes. Can we talk about this for just a second? You know, this is something that I do miss. I'll get really excited about a show, especially the ones on Disney Plus, like Loki. What was the other one? The first one I watched, WandaVision, Loki, Falcon, Winter Soldier. Like, you'll get really into these shows and then you'll realize, oh, there's only 8 episodes. And then you have to wait till like next year to see if they're going to do like a season 2 or something like that. That is one thing I do miss, because typically with broadcast TV, it is a little bit different, where you're going to get like 20 episodes throughout a season. Not so much the case now in a lot of the streaming services. It's not just Netflix. Hulu does this as well. So yeah, that is going to change things. Obviously for you. Stranger Things is another one. They only have like, it's only like 8 or 7 episodes. Okay. It goes on to say, not only does that diminish writers per episode pay, it can limit them from working on other programs if they're tied to longer terms of exclusivity. And assurance on AI. This is the one that has some people wanting to pull their hair out here. Writers are also increasingly concerned that producers will use AI to write scripts or at least fill in the blanks on unfinished screenplays. The fast advancing technology has potentially widespread ramifications for Hollywood, and in some cases may be a useful tool. But the WGA wants production companies to agree to safeguards around its usage. So if they were to start using AI to write scripts, then they wouldn't need them. I mean, that's just a reality. But those are the demands. Wish them the best of luck. But we'll see. We will see. Thank you for the super chat, Roger. Reality TV actors is more about them being non-union. About him being non-union. Whoever says a very happy birthday to Karl Marx. We're going to bring up something with Karl Marx here in a minute as well, too. Thank you for the super chat. Yep, X. Hey, Sabs, I replied to your live tweet with something. Okay, cool. I will check that out. Thank you for the super chat, Zach. Jose gave RBN a shout out on RFK Jr.'s Indie News CHD TV. CHD. I'll have to check that out. I don't know what that is, but I'll check it out. That's awesome. Thanks, Jose. Larez, we don't even have free market capitalism. We have socialism for the oligarchs. LOL. Steven says, will Democrats vote to break this one? Oh, no. Oz, you're exactly right, Sabrina. It's also social conditioning to accept how they want to make more money at our time and expense. Thank you so much, guys. Shout out to Oz. We are now moving on to our second story. And if you haven't heard about this incident that happened with Jordan Neely. So Jordan Neely was a Michael Jackson impersonator in New York City. Also, apparently, he was homeless. And there was an incident on the subway, on the F train in New York. And an ex-Marine took it upon himself to put him in a chokehold. Now, please be advised that Jordan Peely did not physically harm anyone. Apparently, according to witnesses, there were threats that he made, but he didn't hurt anyone. This ex-Marine put him in a chokehold. There were 3 other gentlemen who basically helped hold him down. I think they should be questioned as well. And he died. The ex-Marine has not been arrested. I'm telling you what happened because I don't want to show you the video. I'm not showing that video. But we are going to get into the discussion. Now, shout out to Case Study QB says, man dies after chokehold by fellow New York City passenger. So here we go.
Tonight, the Manhattan DA is investigating a disturbing incident that occurred on the New York City subway system. A man died after he was put into a chokehold by another rider on Monday. A warning, the video that I am about to show you is difficult to watch.
And we're going to pause there, and I'm just going to jump ahead. Like I said, I'm not going to show the video, but you can basically see what's happening here. Jordan is here. There's the guy, and they also blurred out their faces, so this is not easy to see anyway. But this is the ex-Marine who put him in a chokehold. Now you have 3 gentlemen. You have a gentleman here. I think that's a female. We have a gentleman here. There's another gentleman over on this side that you can't really see, but they helped basically hold him down. You see how this guy has his arm? Okay, so I just want to remind you again, he did not physically harm anyone. So let's go on here. I'm just going to speed past this. Okay, here we go.
Attack anyone, according to that witness. Neely was found unconscious and given first aid. When police arrived, he was then transported to a nearby hospital and was pronounced dead later that day. The medical examiner's office has ruled the incident a homicide due to chokehold. So joining me now is New York City Mayor Eric Adams on this and a number of other topics. Mayor Adams, this is something that is really at front of mind for your city right now. It is about both what is happening in the subways, but also about the death of this 30-year-old. What can you tell us about what led up to this incident? What do you know?
Well, right now it's still ongoing, and really our hearts go out to the family and this terrible incident. And the district attorney, as you stated, the ME, medical examiner's office, just ruled the case, and now it's in the hands of the investigators to determine exactly what happened. There's so many unknowns at this time.
So one of the reasons that this story is really hitting a nerve is because this man appeared to be having mental health issues. This is something that you've talked a lot about, but I want to read to you. This is a response from the comptroller, Brad Lander. He tweeted this: New York City is not Gotham. We must not become a city where mentally ill human can be choked to death by a vigilante without consequence. There's also this from Alexandria Ocasio.
Let's pause here for a second and talk about the vigilante aspect of this. There was another incident that happened. This was probably about 2 months ago, where there was a kid breaking into a car and a neighbor came out and shot the kid, killed the kid. They talked about this on Rising. Bree and Robbie talked about this. I think he was 13 years old, the kid or whatever. And it turns out that that wasn't even the neighbor's car. And it brought up this question again about, when is it okay to take matters into your own hands versus contacting law enforcement to do their job? And with this particular situation, you have to look at it through that lens. The Marine who just kind of jumped in and put him into a chokehold here, in a sense, it was almost like he was acting as a vigilante, like Batman, or I don't know, the Green Arrow, here comes the Flash, like some vigilante who's just going to come in and save the people and save the day. But you also have to ask yourself, was he physically harming anyone at that time? Now, there are witnesses that say that Jordan Neely, when he was on the train, he screamed that he was hungry and that he threatened to hurt someone. We're hearing different stories from different people. But I think the problem is there is a difference between saying I'm going to do something and doing something. And for that Marine, and as someone who came from a military family, for that Marine, putting him in the chokehold was the intention to put him to sleep. You know how some people say they put you in a sleeper hold, or was it done with the intent to kill? But we have to ask the question, when is it okay to take matters into your own hands? What some people are saying is that if you are on the subway or you're in a situation where you feel unsafe, then it's okay for you to take matters into your own hands. Here's the problem with that. This particular incident, it can set a dangerous precedent. It can give people the impression that that is exactly what they can do. And then you have to define safe. What does it mean to necessarily feel safe? What if you're on the subway and someone gives you what you perceive to be a dirty look, which these things do happen on the subway? Okay, I'm just saying. I lived in New York City. I rode the subway in New York City when I lived there. I lived in Boston. I rode the subway when I lived in Boston. Like I'm about that transportation life, okay? Let's put it that way. I'm about the public transit life, so I'm very familiar. You encounter all different types of people. But here's the thing. What happens if you're on the subway and someone gives you what you perceive to be a nasty look? You don't feel safe. Is it okay then to do what the ex-Marine did? And this is where we have to be careful, because some people will take this and they'll use it to their advantage. Some people, just because they don't like someone who may look a certain way, can use that to their advantage. Oh, well, he got on the train and he was looking at me weird. and it made me feel really unsafe. So I took action. This is something we need to think about. We need to think about the precedent. Let's go on.
Cortez, the Democratic Congresswoman, she said Jordan Neely was murdered. What is your response to what they're saying here?
Well, both the Congresswoman and the controller is a citywide leader. And I don't think that's very responsible at the time where we're still investigating the situation. Let's let the DA conduct his investigation with the law enforcement officials. To really interfere with that is not the right thing to do. And I'm going to be responsible and allow them to do their job and allow them to determine exactly what happened here.
Can I just ask you, though,
Yes,
I mean, on the question of vigilantism, what do passengers do in situations like that? Is it appropriate to take matters into your own hands?
Each situation is different, and how a passenger, we have so many cases where passengers assist of the riders, and we don't know exactly what happened here until the investigation is thorough. And each situation is different. I was a former transit police officer, and I responded to many jobs where you had a passenger assisted someone. And so we cannot just blatantly say what a passenger should or should not do in a situation like that. We should allow
that. I would be very careful with that statement. This piece right here. Remember, he's the mayor.
and
It's
each
his city.
situation is different. I was a former transit police officer, and I responded to many jobs where you had a passenger assisted someone. And so we cannot just blatantly say what a passenger should or should not do in a situation like that. We should allow the investigation to take its course.
All right. So I want to.
He's the mayor, guys. One of the questions I had in reference to this incident was, where were the transit police? That was one of the questions that I was just wondering, because to me, why weren't they around? Or were they around and they weren't signaled for help? Now, the ex-Marine who put him in that chokehold, he has a name now. He has been identified. His name is Daniel Penny. Daniel Penny is the subway murderer. Make sure everyone knows this murderer is still out there. Now, Single Moms for Socialism found his name. And here it is here. There's a thread where you can see they pulled up pictures. Several people who went to his high school sent me his name and photos. They recognized him. Here's a yearbook photo from a decade ago. And now they said he always, I think that's supposed to be scared and not sacred them. Scared them. So that is his name, is Daniel Penny. And we got to say his name because Jordan Neely's name is all out in the open. All out in the open. So that's who put him in the chokehold. Now, JB said, I hope this information is accurate. I did Google this and look this up. That is his name. They have identified him now. And I want to point out something as well, because they talked about this a little bit on the readout, which I know is Joy Reid. I get it. But there's something that's said here that I think I want people to pay attention to. This is very scary to me. This is very scary that more and more we're hearing these cases. The 16-year-old boy who rings the wrong doorbell and is shot in the head. The teenage girl who turns around in someone's driveway and is shot. Like, it just, when is it okay for people to take matters into their own hands? Let's get into this discussion here. I want to play part of this. Of course, Al Sharpton decided to show up for this as well. Here we go.
Jordan Neely was a 30-year-old man who some New Yorkers may remember. Here are some videos showing Neely as quite the Michael Jackson impersonator who performed around New York City subways, transit hubs, and streets. Neely was also homeless and struggled with mental illness, factors that many believe contributed to why Neely is no longer alive. On Monday, Neely was allegedly yelling and pacing back and forth on a subway train in Manhattan. until a stranger, a former Marine, who has not yet been named, put Neely in a chokehold on the subway train.
He's named now.
Floor. We're about to show the video, and a warning, it is disturbing.
And I'm not going to show that video. You guys don't need to see, I don't want you guys to see that. And then we're going to get into this discussion here.
And Shams DeBaron, a homeless rights and housing activist. Thank you both for being here. Shams, I do want to start with you first. Welcome to the show. Tell me what you make of the way that this young Michael Jackson impersonator was killed.
Ooh. Well, and my brother Sharpton, that's my family right there. We go way back. And you all have to forgive me if I get too emotional. This brother was someone who was failed by the foster care system. It's failed by so many layers of government. This is a brother who, I know what it's like to be a foster child, to be in the streets, and to try and find a way to survive. This is a brother who was trying his best to survive and did it through entertainment, through performing. I knew him from that aspect. Didn't even know he was homeless. But I've seen so many people have to resort to becoming street performers like Brother Jordan was. And when you're that young and you don't have help, it causes so many.
I just want to pause here for a second. I wanted to show you that piece just to give you an idea of where, Jordan was coming. So he was homeless. There was mental illness there that was present as well. And he was not getting the help that he needed. And again, this goes back to the health care issue. Jordan Neely's not alone. He's not the only one that's in this type of situation. The problem is we either don't have the insurance that people need to have in this country where they can seek mental health. Like, mental health treatment is not cheap. It's not cheap to go see a therapist. Like, these things cost. That's part of the problem. But the other part of the problem is that we just don't have health care guaranteed to everybody in this country. Add on top of that, you don't have anywhere to live. You are homeless. Imagine what that could do to you. Now, this is not to make excuses, but what I want to bring it back to is the system that is in place. What he's basically explaining to you is that the system failed. The system failed this guy. And he is not alone. There are other people in that similar situation, going through the foster care system, going from home to home to home. A lot of people sign up to be foster parents, don't want those kids. They just do it for the money, and they don't even use the money to help take care of the child. It's a common story. And so these kids just bounce around from home to home, some of them physically abused, some of them sexually abused. And once they're 18, they're free. Like, the state the state does not have to take care of them anymore once they're 18. So it's just, the problem is not just what happened on that subway. The problem is the system that is in place that allowed it to even get to that point to begin with. Everyone should be guaranteed housing in this country. Everyone should be guaranteed health care in this country. And they're not. And if you're poor, you feel it. You really feel it. And it is very hard to get out of that cycle.
Yeah. I hear you, brother. I do. I hear you. And you know, Rev, it's giving Bernie Gaetz, I have to be honest with you. This whole incident, the fact that this man was not arrested, the fact that we're not getting his name, you know, it's giving Eric Garner. It's giving a lot of things that we really should not have to remember. I want to play for you 2 pieces of sound. This is Governor Kathy Hochul's first reaction and then her updated reaction to this
Listen
killing.
to this.
People who are homeless in our subways, many of them in the throes of mental health episodes, and that's what I believe are some of the factors involved here. And there's consequences for behavior. I'm really pleased.
So that was her first response. That was Governor Hochul's first response. People are homeless in our subways. There's consequences for behavior. Someone must have spoken to her, because she has now changed her response. So listen to this.
The district attorney is looking into this matter. As I said, there have to be consequences. And so we'll see how this unfolds. But his family deserves justice. It became very clear that, he was not going to cause harm to these other people. And the video of 3 individuals holding him down until the last breath was snuffed out of him, I would say was a very extreme response.
And that's exactly why I did not want to play that video. You can look at it on your own time if you want to. But notice she changed her response. When we talk about the homelessness issue, it's just like, she's like, well, there's homeless people living in our subways. Why are they homeless, Kathy? Why are they living in the subway? How much does it cost to rent an apartment in New York City, Kathy? How much? How many people can afford it? How many roommates do you have to have just to live there? And I'm not talking about people who moved to New York City. I'm talking about people who were born there and grew up there and didn't have a say-so in the matter. How much? One of the most unlivable cities financially in this country today. You can add San Francisco to that list as well, and you go ahead and add Boston too. They never get to that problem. They never get to that bit. Why is the homeless population, why is the homelessness population increasing, Kathy? Why? They never get to that part of the problem. They just don't get there. Let's go on a little bit more here and then we'll move on.
Well, somebody must have told her first reaction was inadequate. Reverend Sharpton, your reaction to all of this?
Well, it clearly is something that is above being disturbed. This is, in my judgment, from the film, showing the lack of any kind of civility and a legal reaction. Whether this young man, Brother Jordan, was troubled or not, he should not be sentenced with death. You're talking about a life was taken. And it struck me, which is why I immediately put out a statement. He's on the subway impersonating Michael Jackson, who was close to me. As you know, Michael used to come up to National Action Network. I preached Michael's funeral. And you combine that with Eric Garner, where we have a state law against chokeholds. So what is bothering me is the press is looking into the Jordan family. What happened to Jordan? What happened to his family? What happened to the guy that would choke him for 15 minutes? We don't even know his name.
Okay, so we do know his name now. But what I want to add, it's really interesting that that's coming from Al Sharpton, because Al Sharpton was also one of the people that wanted to give the police more money. He was also one of the people he's talking about chokeholds. He was one of the people that complained about the crime is so bad. I can't go to the store and buy toothpaste because they have it locked up in a case. Man, what is wrong with people? He said that on MSNBC. So it's just, I'm sorry, but you're part of the problem. Al Sharpton is part of the problem. They kill me. They kill me with that. So that's it's really interesting. It's interesting. But I think Jose here hit the nail on the head. All this tells me is the failure of NYC to provide any kind of actual mental health services to the people. For 9 years, This dude was roaming the subway, all the while his mental health is deteriorating. Because the city is so degraded and collapsed, it creates the conditions for encounters like what we saw with the death of Neely to happen every day. It's the system. Big part of it. Hopefully, justice is served. I don't know. But this is where we're at now. Thank you so much for the super sticker, James Starks. Thank you for the super chat, Yonina. The 37th anniversary of the MOVE bombing is coming up. I think it should be covered. This is just a drive-by. Stay aware, stay alive. Thank you so much for that, Yonina. And I'll take the comments on Rockfin, Eric. Thank you for the tip on Rockfin, Dave Burt. And thank you for the tip on Rockfin, Roger. Everyone is being reactive on this and think what should have happened was this or that, but no one is being proactive to understand the source of why this should have never happened to begin with. The problem started with Reagan closing down the government hospitals and mental institutions, kicking all of those patients out onto the street. The second problem is no president since then has reversed it. Third, since we're talking about New York State closures exacerbated in the decade of the Cuomo era, which is why we were so ill prepared for the pandemic. 4, you have low-income discrimination of fancy hospitals here in New York State who will take patients with health insurance to get more money and kick the Medicaid recipients to the government hospitals, which are deeply underfunded. 5, the 2 solutions to solve this that they refuse to do is pass the New York Health Act, which has not even been introduced this new term. The New York Health Act outlaws private health insurance. So now, since the government would be paying private and public hospitals, low-income Medicaid recipients can be admitted everywhere. And not to mention now that the government would be paying private hospitals, they can possibly do some audits on them to see if whether or not they're ripping off taxpayers. 6, if we would outlaw private equity from owning housing who engages in rent speculation, driving up rent rates, then we would end chronic homelessness. In other words, Mr. Neely would either have been in a mental institution or in a home off the streets, not having to beg for food, being out there where it's dangerous. Proactive approach, people, not talking about and going to partisan or racial sides once the incident has occurred. God, I wish New Yorkers were able to amend our state constitution using the CBI process. We'd have fixed this already, one and done. And thank you for the tip, Hemp Car. It's not about funding or more doctors. It's about a society that creates crazy people. Before Columbus destroyed the world, there were 0 prisons, homeless, or people in psych wards in the Americas. They started up in the 18th century after the church closed the torture chambers. Recall a witness to the MLK assassination was put in a ward, says MIT, and in Dr. Pepper's book, The Plot to Kill King. Interesting. All right, let's get to our next story here. So Marianne Williamson went on to Sean Hannity. Yes, she did. I was very surprised. I think she has been on Fox before, but I have to say, out of all the Fox shows to go on to, I do not think that this was the one. And not necessarily because of her, but just because of the style of interview that Sean Hannity typically does. And it's a style I'm not fond of. He doesn't like to allow the guests to answer the questions. So I don't like that the Bill Maher style interview. I don't like that. I like to hear what people are actually going to say. But she went on there and Case Study QB captured it. Now I want you to see this. I'm going to chime in between here and there. I do have things to say. Thank you so much for this Case Study QB. Hold on to your seats. This is a doozy. We're going to dive in.
You watched Joe Biden's re-election announcement video. You may have seen something very interesting at the end. Take a look at your screen and see what it says on the bottom. Paid for by the Democratic National Committee. So the DNC is all in for Biden, and they've rigged the primary before it even starts. Remember, they're going to bypass New Hampshire, go straight to South Carolina. They're not even holding any debates, despite the fact that a majority of Democrats do not want Joe to run for a second term, but Joe isn't the only one running. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. recently entered the race, by the way, and he's up to 19% in the polls. That's a pretty big number, I think. And author Marianne Williamson, she ran back in 2020. If you recall, she is back in the race, and she announced her campaign before Biden did, and she did it longer than 3 minutes and didn't have to tape it. And she's asking Joe Biden to debate her. And she joins us now from Washington, D.C. tonight, the Swamp. Marianne, how are you?
First and foremost, I just want to add the fact that the DNC is paying for Joe Biden's ads said paid for by the DNC. I don't know what else to show people to prove to people that this is all a fixed game. I really don't. I'm glad he pointed that out, though. You're not going to be too happy about this interview, though.
I'm fine, thank you. Thank you for having me.
I actually am going to start out in agreement with you. I think we'll disagree on other stuff. I think it would be fair for Joe Biden to debate you and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Why do you think he's not debating, and do you believe he's in a steep cognitive decline?
Well, I think in a democracy, what's important is that people have a right to see their options. I think this is an extremely important time in American history, and anyone who feels moved to run for president should have their say, and the voters should hear what they have to say, they should hear their agenda, and the voters should decide who they...
So I want to add in here, even though I don't agree with this strategy, I still think they should be able to debate. I think that's BS to tell people like, yeah, we're just not going to hold debates because we don't feel like it. Just because I think that's ridiculous. I will say that much. But listen to this response.
Want to be president.
Okay, how about part two of my question? Do you believe he's in a major cognitive decline?
I'm not a doctor. I'm not somebody who is testing his brain. I think every American citizen
Marianne,
has to
when you
look
watch
at the president and listen to the president.
Does he seem like somebody that has the strength and stamina and is articulate to be president?
You know,
we're going to go back to this question right here, because this question was also asked to Robert F. Kennedy Jr., not by Sean Hannity, but by Michael Smerconish on CNN. He asked the same question. Do you feel that right now Joe Biden has the mental capability to be president in 2024? And for some reason, both of them have a difficult time really answering this question, because it's a yes or no question. But listen to what Marianne says, because she does something similar.
Be fair for Joe Biden to debate you and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Why do you think he's not debating, and do you believe he's in a steep cognitive decline?
Well, I think in a democracy, what's important is that people have a right to see their options. I think this is an extremely important time in American history, and anyone who feels moved to run for president should have their say, and the voters should hear what they have to say, they should hear their agenda, and the voters should decide who they want to be president.
Okay, how about part two of my question? Do you believe he's in a major cognitive decline?
Do you believe he's in major cognitive decline? This is fuzzy, so let me come out and go back in. Okay.
I'm not a doctor. I'm not somebody who is testing his brain. I think every American citizen
Marianne,
has to
when you
look
watch
at the president and listen to the president.
Does he seem like somebody that has the strength and stamina and is articulate?
I'm sorry, Eric, can you refresh this? I can't even see it barely. It's like fuzzy. I'll go away from it. But that's the key question there, right? Do they feel like he is someone who's having this mental decline, that's having this decline? And we talked about this last night with RFK Jr. He didn't really want to answer that question. He said something similar to what Marianne is saying. And it's just like, to me, it's like, no, like that's a yes or no question. And I think you need to be honest with the people. This is not on you or anyone else to be nice to Joe Biden. Don't do it. Don't. I told you guys last night, this is not Street Fighter. This is Mortal Kombat. You have to do what Bernie Sanders did not do, and that was take the gloves off. If you go in there trying to dance with Joe, it is really going to rub particularly Bernie supporters the wrong way. So here we go.
And is articulate to be president?
You know, I wouldn't be running if I didn't think that I was a better candidate. I think I have the energy, and certainly I have the ideas that are better.
You got to answer my
because
question.
I'm not going to come on Fox News and talk to you, Sean, and say something like that. I'm not going to. I think every American can decide for themselves.
But if you believe it, you would tell us, would you?
My mind doesn't go into that. I don't believe that the energy is being demonstrated.
I'm taking this off of here. I'm sorry, you guys. It's just really fuzzy. I'll just do it on, I'm gonna have to share my screen and do this because that's not working well. Okay. All right. So you heard what she was saying. Let me bring this up here. We're going to do screen share with it because I think it's working better this way. All right, here we go. So let me share my screen. And then while I'm sharing, let me know if you hear an echo, because the reason why I don't like to do screen share is if I don't mute my mic, then I have an echo. So let's just go forward a little bit here. All right. Oh, this is such a mess. I really hate this. Let me see. Sorry, guys. Twitter, this is what I don't like about Twitter videos. Eric, can you see if you can find this on YouTube just in case? Because this is, I'm going to refresh it. And I think that's what I'm going to do from now on is just try to see if I can find these on Twitter. On YouTube, excuse me. See, it's still spinning. This is why I don't like. Okay. Like, why does Twitter do this? I can't even pause it. Okay. This is taking up so much time. Like, I really just need to get into this video. Refresh. Sorry, guys. Hold on one second. Maybe it's just this video. Let me see if any of the other. It seems like it's this video. It didn't do this on my phone. Let me try it another way. Oh, thank you, Eric. Eric found the YouTube one. Yeah, this is what I'm going to do going forward. You can put it, can you put it in the type VNC, Eric? It should be fine. In the type VNC. Thank you. Because the Twitter videos, like, I don't know. Sometimes it's okay, and then sometimes they just keep spinning, and I'm like, I don't understand this at all. Okie doke. Woohoo! Thank you. All right, so we'll dive right in.
Time for the Hannity hot seat. If you believe is in a major cognitive decline.
I'm not a doctor. I'm not somebody who is testing his brain. I think every American citizen has to look at the president and listen to the president.
Does he seem like somebody that has the strength and stamina and is articulate to be president?
You know, I wouldn't be running if
I cannot use type VNC. I'm sorry. This is frustrating. Okay, it's type VNC is the fuzziness. I'm just going to bring it back over to my screen. Sorry, guys. When we clip this tonight, if we can cut this part out, like the space in between, because it's, oh my God, this is so annoying. Let me go back to here. Why is it not letting me copy this? Share. Okay. YouTube. All right, let me come out of here. All right. Okay, that's so much better. Sorry, guys. I know some of you are probably like, what the hell? Let me scooch forward right here. All right. Let's try this again. Let me share my screen. All right. Okay, sorry. We are going to try this one more time. Okay, all right. Thanks, Eric. All right, here we go.
I'm fine, thank you. Thank you for having me.
I actually am going to start out.
Really important time in American history, and anyone who feels moved to run for president should have their say, and the voters should hear what they have to say. They should hear their agenda, and the voters should decide who they want to be president.
Okay, how about part two of my question? Do you believe he's in a major cognitive decline?
I'm not a doctor. I'm not somebody who is testing his brain. I think every American citizen has to look at the president and listen to the president.
Does he seem like somebody that has the strength and stamina and is articulate to be president?
Okay, I think that's a simple question. Does he seem like he has the stamina to be president? We know Marianne's not a doctor. We know RFK Jr. is not a doctor. We know that. But we want you to answer the question, like truthfully.
You know, I wouldn't be running if I didn't think that I was a better candidate. I think I have the energy, and certainly I have the ideas that are better.
You got to answer my
because
question.
I'm not going to come on Fox News and talk to you, Sean, and say something like that.
I'm sorry. So this is similar to what RFK Jr. did. This is exactly what I'm talking about, not answering that question. Am I the only one that's willing to answer this question? I'm going to answer this question. No. I do not think that Joe Biden right now has the stamina and the mental capacity to be president in 2024. No, I don't. That's how easy it is to say that. If you can't come out and say that when you're asked that question, it kind of gives people the impression that you are trying to stay in safe waters with Joe Biden, or that in some way you're still trying to defend Joe Biden, and that is a problem. That is a problem. If you are primary challenging Joe Biden and you are running with the intention that if you don't win, you're still going to be his buddy and his bro and his homie, that is a problem. You cannot do what Bernie Sanders did. That's part of the reason why some people left this Bernie movement to begin with, because Bernie caved, because he told you in the end, vote for Hillary, vote for Joe Biden. Joe Biden is my friend. No, 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 no. That is a yes or no question. And I think both Marianne and RFK Jr. should answer that flat out and say, no, I don't think he has the ability to do it right now. That's all you got to do. That's it. I don't know why they're afraid to do that. And if they're afraid to criticize Joe Biden in that way, that is concerning for both of them. That's concerning.
I'm not going to. I think every American can decide for themselves.
But if you believe it, you would tell us, would you?
My mind doesn't go into that. I don't believe that the energy is being demonstrated that I believe will be necessary in order to take on either DeSantis or Trump in 2024. And if I did, yeah.
All right. You said that we need an economic U-turn in this country.
Yes.
What system economically do you support? I'm a capitalist. I believe in limited government, more freedom, lower taxes, and energy independence. What do you want?
You know, I think our capitalist system has lost some of its soul over the last 50 years. I believe that capitalism, you know, Adam Smith, who is the main architect of free market capitalism, said that free market capitalism cannot exist outside an ethical context. I think public policy has to have ethics. So I believe that the American people, our safety, our health, and our well-being should come before short-term profits for huge corporate entities. I believe that there are other stakeholders besides
you're
just
throwing out a lot of
stockholders.
cliches. I want to.
This is something that I don't like about the Hannity style of interview. I don't like the constant interrupting. I want people to finish what they're saying and before he comes in. And this isn't just something he does to Democrats. I watched him do this to Lauren Boebert too, by the way. So that's just his style, and I'm not fond of that.
I want to dig down deep here. What do you think I want, for example, lower taxes, more freedom, less government bureaucracy, and I want energy independence. I want borders secure. I want law.
I want to debunk something that he mentioned here about what he wants. There's something he says about the government. Listen to this part.
I want to dig down deep here. What do you think I want, for example, lower taxes, more freedom, less government bureaucracy?
The more freedom piece and less government bureaucracy, but at the same time, you want a larger police state. This is something that like me and Nick kind of like push back on, is when people will make these statements and they're like, well, yes, I want the government completely like out of my life. But at the same time, like we need to give the police more money and back the blue. And Hannity has been saying those things. So if you're asking for freedom and less government bureaucracy, how could you be in favor of a bloated police state? Those two, they go hand in hand. They go hand in hand. So it's like the people who say that they don't want big government, then you should be against the police state too, right? Like you shouldn't want the police to have more money. You shouldn't want to give the police more money because that's still big government. Let's go on.
And I want energy independence. I want borders secure. I want law and order. What do you want?
Okay, so let's go with each one. The first one, take each one at a time. The first one you said was lower taxes. I want lower taxes for middle class people. I want higher taxes for people who have huge amounts of wealth and are living at the effect of public policies. How high? I want to see a wealth tax. I think people who, first of all, I think we should look. In 2017, we had a $2 trillion tax cut. 83 cents of every dollar went to the very richest Americans and the very
let's see
richest
how smart you are in the economy.
The middle class.
What percentage of income taxes?
See this piece? This is why I said this is not the Fox show to go on, because this is what he does. This is how he constantly talks over, doesn't let you finish what you're trying to say. I think that Marianne should have continued on with her first statement that she was saying before she switched, because she switched, and I think she should have just continued on with that question and answered that question. So let's go back just a little bit because I also interrupted myself.
We have a $2 trillion tax cut. 83 cents of every dollar went to the very richest Americans and the very
let's see
richest
how smart you are in the economy.
The middle class.
What percentage of income taxes do the bottom 50% of Americans pay? What percent?
It's not about the.
She's allowing him to fluster her. See, this is the thing. So if you are the one that's being interviewed, one thing you got to be careful with is allowing the interviewer to upset you. And she just became flustered right there. So see, now it's like they know they got you. When he did this he did the same thing to Lauren Boebert. She didn't let him get to her. So when Marianne did this, it was like, and threw her hands up and did like that. Now they know they got you. So that's not something you want to show. Even if that's what you feel inside, you don't show that. So that's, especially if you're running for office, this is nothing, because Sean Hannity, okay, this is nothing. If they do happen to change their mind, or if somebody does a debate somewhere, maybe it is Charlemagne the God, I don't know. Maybe he decides I'm going to host a Democrat debate. If somebody does it somewhere, there are going to be some questions that are asked by those moderators that you may not be fond of. Marianne knows this. She ran for president before, but also they may cut you off just like they did to people in 2020. And if people see you get flustered like that, then it kind of makes them wonder, okay, if she's that easily flustered, or if she's showing it, then how will she be as president? How will she handle more pressing issues when it comes to foreign policy, when it comes to the economy? How will she handle it? Is she going to show that frustration to the public? So you got to be careful about that. And that goes for anybody, whether it's her or RFK Jr., etc. But she let him get to her there. Right there at that part.
83 cents of every dollar went to the very richest Americans and the very
Let's see how
richest
smart you are in the
corporations.
economy.
The middle class.
What percentage of income taxes to the...
That part right there. So here's the thing. You can't... Okay, thanks, Eric. So here's the thing. You can't control how other people respond. You can't control what they say. But you can control the way that you respond. And that's what everyone will look at. Everyone knows Sean Hannity is going to be an ass. It's expected. But they're not really going to be looking at him. They're going to be looking at you. So this is an important piece.
The bottom 50% of Americans pay. What percent?
It's not about I'm not going to talk to you about the bottom middle class, the bottom half. I'm going to talk to you about the upper class, the 1%. So you asked me what I want to see. I want to see 50 million or more. I think people should pay an extra 2% in taxes. Wouldn't affect their day. And if someone has $1 billion, they should pay an extra 1%.
So you want to each American based on their need, from each American according to their ability.
You know, talk about cliches.
I'm asking.
I think that we should have fair taxation.
Is that a statement that you agree with? I'm asking.
Well, as a concept, but once again, that we should talk about what's real in this country.
That's Karl Marx's words, not mine.
Well, thank God I didn't say yes, because then you'd be calling me a Marxist.
You kind of did,
look,
but
Sean,
you know.
Well, no, I didn't. Look, Sean, look.
This piece right here was very telling because I don't have a problem with that. And this is something I think that, especially if you are primary challenging Joe Biden, I think we need to start pushing back on people who are going to criticize you or demonize you because you may be further to the left. Listen to this.
From each American according to their ability.
You know, talk about cliches.
I'm asking.
I think that we should have fair taxation.
Is that a statement that you agree with? I'm asking.
Well, as a concept, but once again, that we should talk about what's real in this country.
That's Karl Marx's words, not mine.
Well, thank God I didn't say yes, because then you'd be calling me a Marxist.
You kind of.
What's wrong with that? See, this is the thing. This is why anyone, if you are running to the left of Joe Biden, but you still want to stay within the status quo, oftentimes what will happen is that anytime you are referred to as a socialist or a communist, or as they were just saying, a Marxist, then it's like you tend to shun that because you still want to be okay with the status quo. You want to be to the left of Joe Biden, but you still want to be okay with the status quo in the end so that you still get a seat at the table. And here's the problem with that. Even if you're not a Marxist, what's wrong with being called one? What's wrong with being called a socialist? What's wrong with being called a communist? You see the problem, guys? So what this has shown me is that at the end of the day, even people running to the left of Joe Biden are only willing to go so far away from the status quo. This is an important moment for people to understand, because even Bernie Sanders, who called himself a democratic socialist, was only willing to go but so far away from the status quo. If he wasn't, he wouldn't have told you to vote for Joe Biden, and he would have stayed with his movement and said, all right, let's build this up into something else. You see what I'm saying? So it's like, you want to play for the Red Sox, but you also want to play with the Yankees. And you just can't do both. You really can't. Either you go all in and you say, look, so what? You want to call me a Marxist? Great. So what? By the way, happy birthday, Karl Marx. That's how you handle that. But if you start to tiptoe back, then it's like, what are you trying to do? Because and this is not just a Marianne thing. I'm noticing this with anybody who's so much to the left of Joe Biden. This is what they tend to do. They start to walk back anything that seems to turn off the status quo to the point where they may be demonized. And so because because that could happen to them, they don't want to embrace it. What Marianne should have said here was, and so what? That's something to pay attention to.
Kind of did,
Look,
but
Sean, well, no, I didn't. Look, Sean, look, I did.
Let me ask you.
You didn't trap me there.
Would you support me in this? Do you support energy independence, and we ought not be importing oil from countries that hate us and countries like Venezuela? Would you support me on that?
I think that I would support you that we should not be getting oil or selling arms, by the way, to countries that hate us. But I also want to see a habit.
We shouldn't be selling arms to countries, period. Like, it's not just countries that hate
us and countries like Venezuela. Would you support me on that?
I think that I would support you that we should not be getting oil or selling arms, by the way, to countries that hate us. But I also want to see a habitable planet in 100 years.
We shouldn't be selling arms to anybody. See, this is how you break up the military-industrial complex. It's like, if you're against us selling arms to countries that hate us, but you're all right with us selling arms to countries that are allies or support us, then how are you going to get into the environmental conversation and you still supporting the military-industrial complex? This is a place that we have to come to in this country and in this space. And Jill Stein and I talked about this before. If you are still agreeing with selling the arms to the countries who are our allies, who do not hate us, and then you start to dive into the environmental conversation, again, you can't play for the Red Sox and the Yankees. You got to pick one. You can't be on both of these teams. You see, this is the middle thing. Like, you can't be in the middle on this. You cannot, guys, I'm going to say this very clearly, and I don't want to lose my voice. You cannot be in the middle when it comes to the environment. You cannot. And she's going to go on and tell you just why. Now listen to this.
I want to see massive investments in green energy. I want to see a just transition from a dirty economy to a clean economy.
How much money? We're now spending over $50 billion. Every government agency is spending something on the
economy and a green economy. This is
like Venezuela. Would you support me on that?
I think that I would support you that we should not be getting oil or.
She also missed the Venezuela piece. You see how he slid that in there? That's the country that they refer to demonize communism and to demonize socialism. They say, oh no, we're going to be like Venezuela. He could have mentioned any other country. Marianne should have pushed back on that, but he slid that in. But listen to this.
Selling arms, by the way, to countries that hate us. But I also want to see a habitable planet in 100 years.
And if you want to see a habitable planet in 100 years, then you can't still be in agreement with selling the arms. When we talk about how the military-industrial complex is the largest single most polluter in the world, it's not just the drone strikes and the bombs. It's also the military tanks. It's the vehicles. It's the weapons. It's the environmental pollution that stays around even after the war has ended and the people get sick years later after the war is gone. So you can't have it both ways. You cannot. And I'm willing to talk to anybody about this issue, but you cannot have it both ways if you want this planet to be habitable in 100 years. Look at the climate report. Look at the climate report from the committee that we were talking about when Jill Stein came on. In fact, I'll pull that number up for you so you can see it.
I want to see massive investments in green energy. I want to see a just transition from a dirty economy to a clean economy.
How much money? We're now spending over $50 billion. Every government agency is spending something on the climate alarmist religious cult. How many billions of dollars do you want to invest in it? Give me a number.
Listen, we have $858 billion right now in our military expenditure every year, and they are the largest institutional emitter of greenhouse gases.
So Marianne's letting you know she knows that. She knows just what I just said. And at the same time, she still want to play for both two teams at the same time. You cannot. She is knowledgeable of this fact. She is very much aware. So you still can't support selling the arms. That's the problem. Chip said this is a joke. I don't know what else to say.
The Congressional Budget Office, hardly a liberal organization, says that we could take out $1 trillion of that over the next decade and cut greenhouse gases.
But natural gas is a clean burning fossil fuel. All right, I got to ask you about some of the weird stuff you've said.
Okay.
Okay, you have said your body is merely your space station from whence you beam your love to the universe. Don't just relate to the station, relate to the beams. You said everyone feels on some level like an alien in this world because we are. We come from another realm of consciousness and long from home. What the hell does that mean?
I'm surprised to hear you say that because I would think that you would recognize that as a very traditional religious and spiritual perspective, that we are spirits, that God created us as spirits. And that is what we are, and we are here to love one another. And we don't feel deeply at home on a spiritual level on this planet because this world is not based on love the way it should be. I think those words are
all right. That's
nice.
A fair answer. I'm a Christian. I believe in God the Father, that God created every man, woman, and child on this earth. I believe in Jesus Christ, his son, that died and resurrected, came back from the dead to save all of us from.
I'm not quite sure what that has to do with this conversation. I just
our sins. That's what I believe. So anyway, Marianne, I appreciate you taking the heat. Thanks for being here. You're welcome back anytime. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe.
So probably the best Fox show to go on to. Miguel, oh no. Miguel goes, amen? Question mark. I think there was some troubling moments there. Like really, like I don't know what it is with these candidates, man. They're afraid of being called a Marxist or a socialist. They're afraid to say that Joe Biden does not have the mental capacity to be president in 2024. I don't have time for it. Like I really don't. Like I'm just like, this is Bernie all over again. Joe's my good friend. No, he's not your friend. He should not be your friend. It is okay to criticize Joe Biden. It is okay to call out Joe Biden by name. And I'm going to keep it real. If Marianne and RFK Jr. really want a crack at this, still don't think they're going to win. But if they really want to crack at this, they're going to have to start punching Joe Biden in the face. Literally, not physically. They're going to have to really knock Joe out, and they're going to have to start calling him out by name, and they're going to have to do so based on policy and policy alone. Don't make it personal. If you make it personal, then they're really going to come for you and be like, you're not serious, but do it on policy alone. And you cannot be afraid of someone calling you a Marxist or a socialist or a communist whatsoever. This is 2023, and my generation, we're not really putting up with this. Like, really not. No, I just can't. I can't. So let me go back into Type VNC. Let me go to some of the comments because I could see some of the remarks. If you have not had a chance to do so, please go ahead and hit that like button, guys. That helps me out with the algorithm. Thank you so much for that. And we're almost through the night here. I told you my throat is a little sore, but we got to cover this story with AOC and Matt Gaetz and Rokana hiding in the background. So we do have to get into that story. Thank you for the super chat, Mary Ebony. It's like Hannity is seeking for a validation and sound bites. That's what it feels like. That's what it felt like. Thank you for the super chat in Harkin. Kinky says, Sabby, Republicans are to the left of Joe Biden. I hear you. Want to see more says, Sabby should get Russell Brand on. You could tell him. I don't know him. I've never met him, but you could tell him. Somebody could tell him. But I don't really see him do interviews that much. It's usually It's usually the other way around. I usually see him interview other people, but I don't see him do as many interviews. But yeah, we'll see how that goes. Oh, Eric, are you adding that back? Okay, thanks. Uh-oh, that's me. There's two of me. Here we go. AOC and Matt Gaetz. Okay, they have actually introduced legislation to prevent Congress members from trading stocks. Now, this conversation has come up multiple times before. Immediately, a lot of you think of Nancy Pelosi, and I totally get it. I think of the ice cream lady too. But it's not just her. It is not just her. I've told you before that Ro Khanna also trading stocks, even though he continues to deny it and say that those are not his stocks. I've showed you the screenshots where it has his name, and I'm going to show you new ones tonight that's been brought to my attention because my friend sent this to me, and I want you to see it as well. But Case Study QB was able to clip this here, and it says, discussing Matt Gaetz and AOC uniting to ban stock trades for Congress as Ro Khanna is called out for selling his stock in First Republic before it collapsed. Remember, I told you guys about that. So here we go. Now it's not just on my show. Now it's on mainstream media that it is also him trading stocks. Here we go, ladies and gents.
Members of Congress dumping stocks right before a major bank failure. Before First Republic Bank faltered, 5 lawmakers sold their personal stocks in trades that potentially saved them tens of thousands of dollars. But an unlikely duo wants to stop Congress from cashing in. Matt Gaetz teaming up with AOC, pushing a bill banning lawmakers from owning and trading stock. Here's what he told Jesse.
We should disallow congressional stock trading for the same reason we don't allow the referee to bet on the game. And this is not a small amount of money. $788 million worth of securities traded by members of Congress last year. Take Lois Frankel, who you just mentioned. She's been a lawmaker since I was 5 years old. And I'm supposed to believe that all of a sudden she's making moves like she's Warren Buffett?
Oh, my throat. I shouldn't laugh. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's kind of funny.
He had some good lines last night, including one saying it's like it's a stocked game, you know, or it's stacked against you.
Letting referees bet on the game. Insider trading is illegal everywhere except Congress. That's right. So good for these two to get together and get the sleaze out of there. Here's what I don't understand. If you're a member of Congress, you're going to make money when you leave Congress. So why can't you just wait? You already have free transportation, free healthcare, free gym, free food, taxpayer-funded junkets, donor-funded vacations. Do 2 terms, be a lobbyist, and cash in. You can't wait that long.
Is that your solution?
Well, this is going nowhere, by the way. This dies in the Senate.
Okay.
That's a shame.
And possibly, you know, it's interesting. The media covered a lot of, for example, remember Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue in Georgia?
Yes.
Everyone looked at theirs, but nobody looked at, is it Polly P.?
Polly P.
And the actions, and Nancy Pelosi has defended people being able to play the stock market on the Hill.
Yeah, Nancy Pelosi said something like, oh, but we're a free market economy. I mean, isn't this a contradiction of what a free market economy is when Nancy and the lawmakers can get ahead of what everybody else knows, get ahead of the curve, and then profit off their own personal information? It's disgusting. What do you think?
So this is something that has bipartisan support. I think Ted Cruz at one point was also in favor of this too. I know, random and weird. But, you know, this is one of those things where it continues to die, though. We're going to bring up this. I'm going to show you something in just a second that shows you this is not the first time that this has been brought up before to prevent congressmen and congresswomen from, you know, trading stocks. But it doesn't seem to go anywhere. You know, when you have people there who are a part of the problem that are participating in this, who are going to make sure that the legislation doesn't really go anywhere. He just told you it dies in the Senate, might even die in the House, like, to be honest with you. But what does this mean for people like Ro Khanna who have tried to kind of hide behind the scenes in reference to this and say it's not him, it's not him? I'm going to show you some more in just a second.
I smell a romantic comedy.
Ooh.
A beautiful left-wing communist in Congress a dashing right-wing male fresh off a wrongful accusation of sexual misconduct. They come together to fight one of the most corrupt practices in politics, and they fall in love. They can't help themselves. She's got a French poodle. He's got a strange hairline, but somehow they're going to make it work. And then they're going to leave politics and start their own business. It'll be like a bakery.
He said I'm trying not to laugh because my throat, but he said he has a strange hairline. Jeez.
Bakery, a vegan bakery for pets.
He's happily married.
Vegan bakery. No, he's going to leave her.
No, he's not.
He's not married. He's married.
And don't ruin her. She's engaged. Dude, this is not the worst scandal. The real scandal is caused by politicians who vote for increased spending and increased printing of money, which is their method of self-preservation, which leads to inflation, which is a tax expanding the money supply, which makes each single dollar worth less. So we all get screwed because the prices go up instead of down. So it's a double whammy in a capitalist society. That shouldn't happen. You shouldn't have massive government spending. So that's everybody is guilty. Every time they vote for spending.
He is really passionate about this, which was kind of weird to me. I was kind of surprised by that, but he's a little way too passionate about this.
Or vote for printing money. They create more inflation. That's a huge. What am I doing?
I don't know. But in this story, can I marry them?
Yes, you will be married. We'll all do cameos.
Well, I feel bad.
When we have a #1 show, we should be doing cameos.
I feel bad for Elon because before you thought that they were going to end up together. Jessica, last word for you.
Your favorite, Abigail Spanberger, and Jeff Roy had a bipartisan bill about this. And I don't know why.
I don't see a romance there.
No, I was not insinuating that.
I don't think so. No.
But
I don't know. Maybe this is getting closer. Might not die in the Senate.
Most politicians die in the Senate.
Yeah.
Abigail Spanberger, remember, she is the one that also, we're going to go to this in just a second, that also AOC was caught endorsing. So she had donated money to Abigail Spanberger. I guess AOC thought that this wasn't going to get public attention, but it did get public attention. People found out about it. I was one of the people that found out about it, and I was talking about that. And Abigail Spanberger, again, she's not one of the progressives, so to speak, and she also was ex-CIA. And there were articles about this, how AOC was using money from her foundation to donate to Abigail Spanberger, which is what she promised her constituents that she would never do. She would never take their donations and donate it to an establishment Democrat. And she did just that. So they're connected, and Abigail is ex-CIA. I'm not making this up. You can look it up for yourself. So here is Ro Khanna coming in here. For transparency and full context. Because see, they've been calling him out. Look, all these people, they've been calling him out. They're talking about it's not just him, all the different politicians who are trading, right? So they said the wife and children of Representative Ro Khanna sold First Republic FRC on March 15th. Representative John Curtis, Republican, sold shares in First Republic. So they're not just calling out Ro Khanna. And then Ro Khanna goes, for transparency and full context, this is my wife's money prior to marriage, already in a diversified trust to eliminate conflicts. The sales were after an 80% fall, de minimis, and at a loss. I have no involvement and support a total stock ban. But people don't believe this because let me show you why. Let's go back. Welcome back. He continues to say this, but I want to show you something. So this is from Quiver Quantitative. Since 2018, there have been different bills on congressional trading referred to the following committees: So here's all the different committees: House Administration, Ethics, Ways and Means, Financial Services, Judiciary, Oversight, Homeland Security, Banking, Housing and Urban Affairs, and Finance. And not a single one of those committees have released a bill for a vote. At some point, you have to question whether party actually wants to take action or if they just want the PR boost from new proposals. So this is a good point. Some people are saying that this measure from AOC and Matt Gaetz is actually just performative because they said, look at how many times this has been done before. Could be the case. Don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But when it comes to Ro Khanna, there are more recent trades that have happened. So again, he keeps saying it's not him and it's, his wife. I want to get into people's like married life and all that jazz. But this is coming directly from Capital Trades. So if you look at Capital Trades, this is talking about AMD. Okay. So all the way here at the bottom, this is when they name people. They're not just coming after Ro Khanna. Despite this week's drop in AMD stock, shares are still up nearly 30% year to date. Several Congress members, including Ro Khanna, Josh Gottheimer, and John Curtis, all reported transactions centered around AMD shares in recent months. And I've said this before, if this is Ro Khanna's family members that are doing this, it should not be under Ro Khanna's name. And that's the thing. It also still doesn't explain why he deleted that tweet when someone took a screenshot of his profile and put it on Twitter. Ro Khanna deleted the tweet. Not his own tweet. He deleted the reply. So someone replied to him talking about this before and they sent a screenshot and he hid it. So you can do that. You can hide responses from people if you don't want people to see it. And then that person took a screenshot of that and showed everybody he hid this response. So that's the fishy part. Now there's more. It's not just AMD. Capital Trades also announced First Republic tumbles at JPM. So this is the First Republic one. And again, at the end, they name the people. For instance, Congressman Ro Khanna was buying the stock on March 9th and 10th when it was trading at $96.01 and $81.76, respectively. So again, it's just, he keeps saying this, but why is it under his name? So, and then Uber stock Ro Khanna has. So look, same thing here. Uber stock. While Congressmember Ro Khanna was selling Uber stock in the closing months of 2022, his colleague Josh Gottheimer reported several buy transactions in February. Representative Gottheimer was mostly buying Uber shares in the low to mid 30s. Uber stock is exchanging hands at around $35 a piece. So there's that as well. And then I was trying to make sure I'm at the one that has the profile. Okay, maybe not. It's this one. Oh, I thought I had put the one in there that showed. Oh yeah, it's on the side. See how you can see the profile? So they even have that here. So look, if you look at the stocks, it shows you Ro Khanna. And it says here, Bank of America buy. That was March 13th. Bought Bank of America stock. Here's the AMD, which we referred to over here. That was bought March 24th. Bank of America sold stock March 24th. Bank of America, Bank of America. So again, like this isn't, like this information is not hidden from me or you. But again, like I say, if it doesn't belong to him, then why is it in his name? So there's that too, especially considering he is a member of Congress. Then there's also Pfizer, believe it or not. And they go on to say here, again, at the end, all in all, Pfizer shares trade around $40 a piece on Tuesday. Congress members Michael Guest, Scott Franklin, Jared Moskowitz, Ro Khanna, and Daniel Goldman were all selling Pfizer shares in 2023. So again, it's like, hit that like button, guys. Smash that like button. Smash it, smash it, smash it, smash it. You know, if I had money before I got married and I had invested that money in stock, it would be under my name. It would say sabrinasalvati. And if Ro Khanna was so concerned and worried about it, wouldn't he have made some type of adjustment to make sure it's removed from his name? Very strange. Now, I want to give you just an idea of what he may be trying to do. Now, this comes from Quiver Quantitative again. Western Alliance Bank and PacWest are getting hammered today in after hours, with PacWest falling 55% and Wall falling 25%. U.S. Representative Daniel Goldman sold both stocks just before their dive began in March. Now, listen to what they say here. Goldman spokesman Simon Cantor insisted the congressman is not involved in trading stocks in his portfolio, adding it is managed entirely by an investment advisor with whom he has had no discussions about any stock trades since entering Congress. This could be a similar excuse that Ro Khanna is trying to use. Now, you tell me, do you buy that? Because I don't. Dun, dun, dun. I don't buy it. I don't buy it. I'm just sorry. Myra's mama says he's a lot. Come on. Come on, guys. If you had stock, it wouldn't be in my name. Ay. All right, guys. I'm going to go to the comments and then I'm going to head out. Thank you for the super chat, Worminy. Consider this a donation to your presidential campaign. Sabby 2024, keep up the great work. Oh, thank you. That's so sweet. I would never run for office, though. Lauren says Rose's wife is an investment genius. I want to talk about people's, fam, but I just don't buy it. Just don't buy it. So that's that. But I don't think that legislation is going to pass. Just don't think so. All right, I'll do Rockfin and then we'll skadoodle. What is that, Baron? I put all my stock in Bill Gates' name just in case. Okay. Okay. Thank you for the tip on Rockfin, Roger. I think you mean figuratively punch Joe in the face, since literally and physically mean the same thing. That's right, figuratively. Thank you for correcting me on that, Roger. My customer was like, hold up, what'd she say? Fox was already losing viewers to streamers. With Carlson leaving, it just got exacerbated. Early Christmas present. Wow. Interesting. All right, guys, I am going to head out. I hope you have a great weekend. I'll be back on Sunday, but enjoy your Friday night, the rest of your Friday evening and your Saturday. And I'm going to have some tea with some honey for my throat. And I am going to fall into a deep, sleepy space. A deep, sleepy space, because once I have the chamomile tea, that's a wrap. That is done-zo. Okay? All right, guys. Hit the button if you haven't had a chance to do so. And that's that. I'm a star boy. Look what you done. I had the weekend stuck in my head earlier, too. I'm a motherfucking star boy. The weekend before he went cray. All right, bye. All right, guys. I'm in a silly mood. Have a good night. Keep up the fight.